President Trump just dropped an economic bomb that will change everything. At 4:37 p.m. Eastern Time today, January 14th, 2026, the White House signed a presidential proclamation imposing a 25% tariff on advanced computing chips. Not just any chips, the chips that power artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and the entire digital economy. NVIDIA H200, AMD MI325X, the most advanced semiconductors on the planet. And the tariff goes into effect tomorrow, January 15th, 12:01 a.m. Let me be clear about what just happened. This is not a proposal. This is not a negotiation tactic. This is done, signed, effective in less than 12 hours, and the market is already responding. NVIDIA stock dropped 4.2% in after-hours trading within 30 minutes of the announcement. AMD fell 3.8%. Taiwan Semiconductor, TSMC, down 5.1%. We're watching billions of dollars evaporate in real time. Here's the executive summary before we dive deep. Every advanced AI chip imported into the United States will cost 25% more starting tomorrow morning. That means the NVIDIA H200 GPU that costs $40,000 today will cost $50,000 tomorrow. The AMD MI325X accelerator that costs $35,000 jumps to $43,750. And these aren't consumer products. These are the foundation chips that run ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, every AI service you use, every cloud platform, every data center. Now let's talk about the proclamation itself, because the details matter. The White House released a 14-page document titled Proclamation on Adjusting Imports of Advanced Computing Semiconductors into the United States. The legal justification cites Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. That's the National Security Clause. The administration is arguing that dependence on foreign-manufactured advanced chips threatens U.S. national security and economic sovereignty. Whether you agree or not is irrelevant. It's law as of midnight tonight. The tariff specifically targets chips with the following specifications: computing performance exceeding 300 trillion operations per second, memory bandwidth greater than 3 terabytes per second, interconnect bandwidth over 400 gigabits per second, high bandwidth memory capacity above 80 gigabytes. What does that mean in English? It means every single chip designed for AI training, AI inference, high-performance computing, and advanced data center operations. The proclamation explicitly names NVIDIA Hopper architecture, AMD Instinct, MI300 series, and any comparable or superior designs. Here's the timeline of how we got here, because this didn't come out of nowhere. On December 20th, 2025, Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration was considering chip tariffs as part of a broader technology sovereignty strategy. On January 3rd, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent testified before Congress that chip dependency was America's greatest economic vulnerability. On January 8th, Commerce Secretary nominee Howard Lutnick said in his confirmation hearing that aggressive chip policy was, quote, inevitable and necessary. And then today, January 14th, Trump signed it without warning. No phase-in period, no grace window, effective tomorrow. The stated goals, according to the White House press release, are threefold. First, incentivize domestic chip manufacturing and reduce reliance on Taiwan and South Korea. Second, protect American AI leadership by controlling access to the most advanced computing infrastructure. Third, generate revenue to fund domestic semiconductor fabrication facilities, also known as fabs. The Congressional Budget Office estimates this tariff will generate $22 billion annually in the first year if import volumes remain constant. But they won't remain constant. That's the whole point. Now here's what the proclamation does not cover, and this is critical. It does not apply to chips manufactured in the United States. That means if Intel, which is ramping up advanced chip production in Arizona and Ohio, can produce domestically, those chips are tariff-free. It does not apply to chips for military or government contracts that have existing exemptions, and it does not apply to older generation chips. If you're buying an NVIDIA A100 or AMD MI325X, those are not subject to the tariff because they don't meet the performance thresholds. Let's talk about the immediate market reaction because it's already ugly and it's going to get worse. NVIDIA closed regular trading today at $138.72 per share. After hours, it dropped to $132.90. That's a loss of approximately $24 billion in market capitalization in under 1 hour. AMD closed at $176.53, dropped to $169.82 after hours. Taiwan Semiconductor, TSMC, the manufacturer of most of these chips, fell from $208 to $197.39. But here's what Wall Street is missing and what you need to understand. This isn't just about chip company stock prices. This is about the entire AI economy. Every company that depends on these chips to operate their services is about to see their cost structure explode. OpenAI runs on hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA H200s and H200s. Google DeepMind, same thing. Anthropic, same thing. Meta AI, Microsoft Azure AI, Amazon Bedrock, all of them run on chips that now cost 25% more. And those costs get passed to you. Here's the math. Let's say a large language model training run currently costs $5 million in compute. 25% tariff means that same training run now costs $6,250,000. A company running inference for 10 million users per month that currently pays $200,000 in chip costs now pays $250,000. Multiply that across every AI company, every cloud provider, every research lab, every university. We're talking about tens of billions in increased costs across the ecosystem. And it's not just AI. High-performance computing for drug discovery, weather modeling, financial modeling, scientific research, all of it depends on these chips. Cloud services like AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, they all use these chips in their data centers. When their costs go up 25%, your monthly cloud bill goes up. When AI services cost more to run, your ChatGPT Plus subscription, your Claude Pro subscription, your Midjourney subscription, they all get more expensive, or the companies go out of business. Now let's talk about who wins and who loses from this tariff because it's not as simple as it seems. The obvious winners are domestic chip manufacturers. Intel is the biggest beneficiary. They have advanced fabs coming online in Arizona, Ohio, and New Mexico. If they can produce H200 equivalent chips domestically, they capture massive market share overnight because their chips are tariff-free. Intel stock jumped 2.7% after hours on this news. Global Foundries, another US-based manufacturer, up 1.9%. Micron Technology, which makes high-bandwidth memory, up 1.4%. The losers are obvious too. NVIDIA, AMD, any company that designs chips but manufactures them in Taiwan or South Korea. TSMC manufactures over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. Samsung manufactures most of the rest. Both are foreign. Both are now subject to 25% tariffs. These companies either absorb the cost, destroying their margins, or pass it to customers, destroying demand. Either way, pain. But here's the second-order effect that's going to hit harder. AI startups die. Let me explain why. A typical AI startup raising a Series A might have $3 to $5 million. They need to spend $1 to $2 million on compute to train their models and run inference. A 25% cost increase means they need an extra $250,000 to $500,000 just to do the same work. Most startups don't have that buffer. Venture capitalists are already pulling back after the 2023 bubble. Now add 25% to the burn rate and you get mass extinction. The big players, OpenAI, Google, Meta, Microsoft, they have deep pockets. They'll absorb the cost or pass some to users. But the hundreds of smaller AI companies building specialized models, vertical AI solutions, open source alternatives, they're finished. This tariff just handed a monopoly to big tech. If you're an AI entrepreneur watching this, you need to make a decision tonight. Can you raise more capital to cover the cost increase? Can you pivot to a less compute-intensive business model? Or do you shut down before you burn through runway? Let's talk about the geopolitical angle because this is economic warfare. Taiwan produces 65% of the world's semiconductors and over 90% of the most advanced chips. China has been threatening Taiwan for decades. The US depends on Taiwan for chips. That's a national security nightmare. Trump's logic is simple. If Taiwan falls to China, America loses access to advanced chips. We need to build domestic capacity now before that happens. The tariff is designed to make foreign chips so expensive that companies have no choice but to buy American or wait for American production to scale. But here's the problem. Intel won't have high-volume production of H200 equivalent chips until late 2027 at the earliest. That means we have an 18-month gap where American companies pay 25% more for chips with no domestic alternative. 18 months of higher costs, slower innovation, competitive disadvantage against China and Europe who don't have these tariffs. It's a huge gamble. If Intel delivers, Trump looks like a visionary. If Intel delays or fails, the entire U.S. tech sector suffers. China is watching this very closely. They're already developing their own advanced chips to get around U.S. export controls. Huawei just released the Ascend 910B, which they claim rivals NVIDIA H200 performance. It's not quite there yet, but it's close. If U.S. companies can't afford NVIDIA chips because of tariffs, and if Chinese chips become good enough and cheaper, guess what happens? American AI leadership evaporates. The tariff meant to protect us could accelerate our decline. Now let's get practical. What do you do with your money right now? If you own NVIDIA or AMD stock, here's the cold truth. Short term, maybe next 6 months, volatility and likely downward pressure. Long term, they'll adapt. NVIDIA might partner with Intel to produce domestically. AMD might do the same. But expect a rough 12 to 18 months. If you're heavily concentrated in these stocks, consider trimming positions or hedging with puts. If you're thinking about buying the dip, be careful. This isn't a normal dip. This is a structural change to the business model. NVIDIA might be cheaper tomorrow, but that doesn't mean it's a bargain. Wait to see how they respond. Do they announce domestic manufacturing partnerships? Do they cut prices to maintain volume despite tariffs? Do they lobby Congress to reverse this? Watch their next earnings call on February 19th. That's when we get real guidance. Intel is the obvious trade here. If you believe domestic chip manufacturing will scale, Intel at $43 a share might be the opportunity. But Intel has disappointed before. They've missed node transitions, lost market share, failed to deliver on timelines. This could be their redemption arc or another false start. I'd wait for proof of execution. If they hit production milestones in Arizona, that's your signal. For AI stocks, this is a reset. Companies with massive capital like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they'll be fine. They can absorb costs. But pure-play AI companies like C3 AI, Palantir, smaller players, watch their cost structures. If they're burning cash and now have 25% higher compute costs, that's trouble. Read their next 10Q filings carefully. Look at their chip procurement strategies. What about your own costs? If you use cloud services for your business, expect price increases. AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, they're all going to pass this through. Maybe not immediately, maybe not the full 25%, but it's coming. If you're on annual contracts, renegotiate now before prices rise. If you're on monthly plans, consider prepaying for compute credits at current rates. If you use AI subscriptions, ChatGPT Plus, Claude Pro, Midjourney, expect either price increases or service degradation. Companies might raise prices from $20 to $25 or $30 per month, or they might keep prices flat but reduce compute allocation, slower responses, fewer images, lower quality. Be ready to reevaluate which subscriptions are worth it. Here's what to watch in the next 72 hours. First, official statements from NVIDIA and AMD. They'll probably release something tonight or tomorrow morning. Watch their tone. Are they defiant? Cooperative? Panicked? Second, analyst downgrades. Wall Street will scramble to revise earnings estimates. Watch for target price cuts. Third, chip futures and supply chain signals. If companies rush to import chips before midnight tonight, we'll see shipping data spike. Fourth, political response. Will Congress push back? Will Democrats try to block this? Fifth, international response. How do Taiwan, South Korea, China react? This could escalate fast. And finally, the unknown unknowns. Trade policy is chaos. Trump might reverse this in a week if markets crater. He might double down if he thinks it's working. He might exempt certain chips or certain companies. We're in uncharted territory. The only certainty is uncertainty. And in uncertain times, cash and hedges outperform hope. Here's my final thought. This tariff is either genius or disaster. There's no middle ground. If it forces domestic chip production to scale and makes America self-sufficient in semiconductors, it's one of the most important economic policies of the decade. If it cripples American AI leadership, drives startups out of business, and hands China the future, it's a catastrophic mistake. We'll know which one within 18 months. Until then, buckle up. The chip wars just went nuclear. Stay informed, stay diversified, stay sharp. I'll be covering this story daily as it unfolds. Subscribe and hit notifications because this is just day one of a very long battle. If this analysis helped you understand what's happening, hit that like button. I'll see you tomorrow with an update on market open reactions. This is economic warfare, and we're living through history.